Governor Abbott is that guy, right? We've been talking about him for weeks, potentially months. That guy has found his ground, and it's a little cliche to say Alamo because of Texas, but he is standing on the walls of his Alamo, and he is going to, he's going to die there because he is taking a stand. And what we're talking about, folks, is, the unfortunate impact of all of this non-border policy, massive influx of, illegal immigrants, and what happened to this poor young lady nursing student, Laken Riley, and what's happened in the last few days. And it's tragic.
It is absolutely gut-wrenching. This beautiful young girl, 22-year-old Georgia nursing student, murdered by an illegal immigrant. I hate to even use the word immigrant, but an illegal, and absolutely devastating, horrific story. And it only gets worse by the details, the facts of this, and it's not good. The optics for Joe Biden and his administration and his failing to secure our borders. This is, this right now is what everyone is focusing on, the fact that this guy, Jose Ibarra, he allegedly killed Laken Riley. He was here illegally, paroled into the country a year after he crossed the southern border. ICE says NYPD arrested him, and he was charged with acting in a manner to injure a child. Then he had a motor vehicle license violation, and then there were actually several other incidents. And of course, the key factor is that he was released before, anything of any consequence, well, before he could be sent back to where he came from, basically. So this is a direct portrayal of Biden's failings here to secure that border. And this is the things that are happening. And this isn't the first one, and it's not going to be the last one, because we don't know what is coming over the border. We don't know the type. Well, we do know the types of people based on this guy, and now maybe by the time of this recording, or by the time this airs on Thursday for you guys, maybe he has spoken about Laken Riley, but to the best of my knowledge, he hasn't even addressed it yet. Has that changed since my last look? I've been tied up all day.
Yeah. So there was a, our deepest condolences kind of thing from the president. That's it. There's been no act, no statement, no anything related to addressing border policy or anything like that. It hasn't even been an attempt to blame President Trump, which, is the reflex action that I'm aware of. I do know there was the condolence, my condolences message that was sent out. And look, folks, I think you said 2020 he came across.
Yeah.
Right. So
2020. There's 2020 or 21, one or the other.
Okay. So there's potential there that he came across during President Trump's tenure in the White House. And no, if that's the truth, I'm certainly not going to be one to hide it or massage the dates.
No.
But the reality is that we've had a border issue, right, for a number of years. There have been attempts, especially even by President Trump, to address it. The wall that we know was fought against and attempted and built in parts and pieces. And then as soon as President Biden came into office, he started tearing it down and selling off the raw materials for the wall. And the policies that have followed. And again, Governor Abbott has been the one who's brought tons of this or brought this to tons of people's attention, because he's made it affect more than just people who live on the southern border. And this is a policy issue when it comes to deportation as well as crossing the border, right? It's not just a border policy. It's an immigration policy, specifically where it relates to this guy, because he did come in illegally. He was caught and then he was paroled into the country. So that certainly happened while President Biden was in office.
Right. I just looked it up. So, here's what I have. Jose Ibarra, 26-year-old citizen of Venezuela, was arrested in the U.S. Customs and Border Protection on September 8th, 2022, after unlawfully entering the United States near El Paso.
Definitely within the President Biden administration. Okay, so 2022. So arrested across the border, paroled into the United States instead of deported.
Right.
crimes in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intent to
Yep.
harm a child, right? There was
Right.
the you said there was I said I saw something too. It was one of those very obscure, nondescript kind of vehicular, you know, violations of some sort,
Yeah.
and again released, charged and
Release.
released, right? And then what does he
Right.
do? He flees the state of New York because he's
Mm-hmm.
he's got no residency. So he
Right.
flees the state of New York and he's down in Georgia. And then unfortunately, Laken Riley, beautiful young lady, goes out for a jog in the morning. And this guy, pardon my mouth, this piece of shit attacks
Mm-hmm.
her and kills her. Right. And as the
Yep.
charges continue to pile up on this guy, the one I saw today was that evidently it was so violent that he deformed her skull. And I don't know
Mm.
if that was in an attempt to conceal evidence, conceal her identity, or what,
Mm-hmm.
but evidently it was a pretty horrific scene. And all condolences and sympathies go out to her family. I know that doesn't fix anything, and I know that sounds hollow, but you know, it gets worse. It's like you said, every time you look at this thing, every time there's a new headline, it's worse. Um,
Yes.
and this is the direct result, like you said that, right? This
Yeah.
is the direct result.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to view it, I don't think. I mean, if people were not coming over undocumented, unchecked in any possible way, flooding into the country, if they were, I mean, it isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody comes into this country and if they're here, and it's not like they're even here on asylum or anything like that, or they're just coming on over because they can. So now you get arrested. We find out that, and nobody more than me hates to knock law enforcement, police departments, I'm assuming their hands were tied, that there was nothing that they could do. They maybe couldn't hold them. I don't really know. I guess because of how our justice system is set up right now, that they just get released. So shouldn't, like, the proper course of action be, you committed a crime, you're not here legally, you're out, you're gone. Here's I mean, I don't know, here's an escort, kick you across the line, go. I don't understand why that's not happening when they commit a crime.
Yeah, and they are. It's a crime. It is a crime to come here illegally. No question about it. The
Right.
current policy is that we're not prosecuting that. Um, and this is one of those where, and I read this today, and it was actually something unfortunately related to child trafficking. But the Border Patrol right now has become, they're not doing a whole lot of law enforcement because they're processing people, and they're
Mm.
acting as counselors, and they're acting as all kinds of things except for law enforcement because of the current policy. There's not enough room to hold
Mhm.
people anymore. They've run out of space. So it's
Right.
catch and release, catch, process, take information, release on your recognizance, and they let them go because they don't have anywhere to put them. And there's
Mm.
not, I think the same article said there have been the equivalent of 36 states' population come into the United States this year. If you took the bottom
36 states.
36, the bottom
Mhm.
36 states in total population and
Yeah.
added them up, that's how many illegal aliens have come into the United States this year. 36 states. 7 point something million people, right?
Wow.
And so what do you do with them? Right. And I understand where you're
Mhm.
at, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. But this has gotten to the point where we can't even afford to send people home. In fact, Venezuela has says, don't send them because we're not taking them.
Wow.
They said we're not taking people back. Not our
Mm.
problem. They left. They're going to the United States. United States problem. Don't send them back here. We're not going to allow them back in. So yeah, there's a lot going on here that, like you said, we're not bashing law enforcement. Their hands are tied. They're
Yeah.
overwhelmed. They're overworked. They're underpaid. They're not given
Right.
any of the resources that they need. And the policy sucks
Mhm.
because now we're at a point where you can't even do anything. You can't
Right.
manage the mass. It just doesn't work.
No, yeah, I think of that job right now in places like New York City and any of our cities that are getting overrun with, these illegals. And you have the population that you're supposed to be policing. You have your district, you have your region that you're policing, and it's based on the number of people versus the number of officers. All of these ratios have been predetermined essentially, and now, and you're probably already working on lesser staffing because of all of the other policies related to policing.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, here's countless more people for you to police. And by the way, as you police them, you can't actually do anything. It is so maddening and frustrating and awful. It's just insane to me. And this administration, this is their legacy right here. What they've done to this country, just on that alone, this is the legacy of this administration, and it will be looked on in history, just negatively, to say the least. That is probably the understatement of the year, but this will not reflect well for them ever.
This and it is unfortunately the innocents that are paying the price, including Laken, and paying it in a very different way. Because she's born and raised U.S. citizen, all American girl, going to school to be a nurse at UGA. She goes out for a drink in the morning, and then this happens. Right, horrific for her family, for the UGA. Right, think about what it does to that entire college, the nursing school specifically within that college. Like, you're going to see an impact, because who now is going to send their 18-year-old daughter right out of high school to go to UGA, let alone the UGA nursing school?
Right.
Nobody. Nobody in their right mind in the next, probably 24 months is gonna look at that one and go, yep, that's my number one choice. That's where I want to go, or that's where I'm gonna allow my daughter to go. So there's that impact. And that article I was reading today talking about the impact of kids, and this is gut-wrenching to me. So the new technique for trafficking kids for labor, right? Sweatshop kind of stuff, but also sex trafficking kids. And this is where Border Patrol kind of is running out of time and assets, is they're literally taking these kids, writing a name and a phone number in Sharpie marker on these kids, and they're sending them across the border. Border Patrol catches them, and the kid says, and they call the number that's on the kid's arm, and they say, do you know who this kid is? Yeah, we know that kid. He's so-and-so and so-and-so. Okay, well, we're going to release him to you, because what else are they going to do with him?
Right.
And then it turns out that these kids are going to work in sweatshops. They're being sex trafficked. They're being all kinds of things. And it's as simple as a damn Sharpie marker.
Right.
Well, what's Border Patrol supposed to do?
Yeah.
I mean,
really.
So,
and I know a lot of people, are sitting and watching not only our show talking about this, but, the news in general, and feeling like, well, we're all so angry and disgusted and horrified. And by the way, we only know a fraction of what's happening, and we're so far removed from what's really happening. Stories like that, unfortunately, for most of us, it's just a story. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't impact you personally, but for those that it does impact personally and does affect that deeply, and who are, saying, well, what do we do? How do we stop? How do we make this stop? That frustration and really rage towards this administration for not protecting these children, these people like Laken Riley, 22 years old. She's just a child. That's horrendous. And now you're also talking about literal actual children. There's a point that we've long passed where enough was enough. And it's very frustrating, because I think we sit here and go, well, how do we shake them into action here? It's maddening.
Yeah. And this is about retention of power, because it's about stacking votes. There's no bones about it. You'll never convince me otherwise. In fact, there are many Democrats out there who've said it flat out, that this is about, changing demographics, adding votes, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what this is. This is, they have hedged the crowd, the demographics that they used to cater to, that they used to target, have been traditionally in the last 40, 50 years, African Americans and women, right?
Right.
And now they've looked at this, they said those populations, suburban women, truthfully, are like the big target. Those populations are actually starting to be overcome, and they're starting to drop in some cases, but they're starting to be overcome by Hispanics, Latin America,
Yes.
and so now they're adding to that, right? And that's what all of this is about. This is about adding a whole new demographic who they're going to pay, they're going to give money to, they're going to allow to come into the country, they're going to give them a place to live, and they're going to make sure they have the ability to vote so that they can retain the Democrats, this administration and the Democrats can retain power. They're stuffing ballot boxes by allowing these people to come into the country. This is not give me your tired, huddled masses, but that's not what this is. This is all about
this
power.
is give us your votes. Right. For anyone to try and argue that, quite frankly, I would say that they're a raging idiot, because I'm not pulling any punches, Clay. You're a raging idiot if you think it's anything else. If you think it's this humanitarian effort to, help these poor people who are just trying to get a better life, bullshit. And you're an idiot. So I'm calling it what it is, and be mad. Tell me you hate me. I don't freaking care. Simple as that. Not when you have, beautiful children like Laken Riley and so many others that have made the news, and all the ones that have not made the news. Because believe me, there's a lot more going on that the media is not, you see it all the time. Something huge happens, a mass shooting or an attempted mass shooting, anything along those lines. And the minute it doesn't fit their narrative, that story's done. You don't hear anything more about it. And there's a few of them that, I could point to as reference for that. But if you don't know that that's the truth, then you're not paying enough attention.